Hi, this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to make the Midnight City bracelet. Now, this bracelet is going to highlight a beautiful pendant from TierraCast, and it's a double-sided pendant here, so it has a sun on one side and a moon and stars on the other. Really large and beautiful. You can just see kind of in my hands that it's going to be a beautiful focal for this. I also have some metal beads here. So I have these little rope beads, and these are going to go great with my little gemstones. And then I also have some little bead caps here, and I'm going to show you why we're going to use those in the center of our design. I have a lovely magnetic clasp, again from TierraCast. I also have a jump ring, and today I'm going to be using the magical crimps. So I have two of those here today. Now, as far as tools, I'm going to be using the Flex-Rite wire today. And like I said, we're going to be using those magical crimps, so I'm going to be using the magical crimper. I also have some flesh cutters here, and some chain nose pliers and bent chain nose pliers. And something that you can use, you don't have to, but I'm going to use a bead stopper here today, and I also have my ruler handy. So if you have everything ready to go, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is bring in our ruler here, and we're going to take our wire. And I want to use about 12 inches or so, which is much longer than my bracelet's going to be, but I just want to make sure that I have enough space for my design. And I'm just going to cut that off. Oops. And now I'm going to set my wire aside so it can hang out over there. And we're done with our ruler for right now. And go ahead and take your bead stopper, and you just sort of squeeze these little two ends here. It's like a little butterfly. And then we bring it to there and close it around 2 inches or 3 inches or so from one side. All right, so now to this side, we're going to start to add our beads. Now I'm going to use, like I said, these lovely little gemstone beads, and I'm going to add 3 of them on the end. Now the reason I love to use the bead stopper is if I ever wanted to adjust my design, I absolutely could, and I'll show you kind of how that could work a little bit later. All right, so now I'm going to pick up one of my metal beads, slide that down. Another of the gemstone beads, another metal bead, a gemstone bead, a metal bead, gemstone, and I'm going to do 5, I'm going to do 5 of the metal beads here. Now you could do less, you could do more if you want to, but I'm going to do 5. And then I'm going to string on one of the gemstones here. And now what I want to do is I want to string on one of the little bead caps here. But I'm going to string it on like this so that it ends up being the bead cap for this bead right down here. Now at this point, what we're going to do is we are going to take our chain nose pliers and our bent chain nose pliers here. And we're going to come in with our jump ring, open it up, and slip on our pendant. And now we're just going to close that jump ring by giving it just a little twist there. Want to make sure we have a nice good closure, because now we're going to slide on that jump ring to our center of our bracelet here, right? So now I have my little bead cap facing this way, and I want to create a little hourglass. So I'm going to face the opposite one going like that. So it's going to sit right in the center just like so. So now we can continue with our beads here, adding one gemstone and one metal bead. Now you can create whatever pattern you like with this. If you wanted to do 2 or 3 in between each metal bead, feel free to absolutely do so. But as you'll see here in just a moment, I'm going to start to size it and see if I want to add to the ends. Now you also do have an option to add the charm at a different point in your bracelet. And again, this is just any time you create a strung design, it's just really nice and easy to adjust. And I'll show you what I'm going to do here in just a second. All right, so now I have my bracelet. And what I want to do is I want to bring in my ruler to see where I'm at here. Okay, so that's a little small. I'm under 5 inches there. So even though my clasp, let's say it ends right there, is going to add a little bit more. That's only going to give me about 5.5 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 more gemstones to this side here. 1 and 2. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my bead stopper on that side, place it over here, and now I can come to this side and add 2 more on this side. So you can kind of go back and forth to get the right design, but that way you're not committed to exactly what's in the center there. All right, and measuring again on my ruler. So I have 5.5 inches there. And by adding my clasp, I'll get to just over 6 inches. So I'm going to leave that. I think that's perfect for me. Feel free to add, like I said, you can do more metal beads. You can lengthen that. You can do it all the way. You don't have to end with the gemstones on the end there like I have it. So I am going to start with my crimp tubes on this side. So what we want to do is we're going to string on one of the magical crimps, and I'm going to string on 1 loop of the magnetic clasp. And I'm going to turn that around and go back through, creating a little loop there for my beads. All right, and I'm going to scooch that down as close as I can get it. We want to leave a little bit of wiggle room there because we don't want it to be too taut and too flat. That's how your wire can easily break, and we want to make sure that we avoid that. So just make sure that you can wiggle it around just a little bit. All right, so now I'm going to come in with my magical crimpers. And if you haven't used the magical crimpers before, let me just go over that really quick. So right here, you'll notice that it's a little ball, it's a little well, and it's on both sides there of the pliers. And what we're going to do is we're going to rotate. We're going to crimp and rotate, because what's going to happen is this little crimp tube is going to become a crimp ball, and it's going to be crimping the wire at the same time. So get it nice and settled in there. You'll feel when it kind of notches in there. That's why we use the magical crimps for the magical crimpers. And we're just going to give it a little squeeze. And now I'm going to rotate that about 90 degrees and give another little squeeze. And we're going to keep rotating. Sorry, sometimes when you work with a magnetic clasp, you just got to kind of keep it out of the way. And squeeze. And squeeze. And you can see that it's starting to get a little rounded, which is really nice. And another little squeeze there. All right, now we want to make sure that it's still crimping there, so we're going to kind of give it a couple of good tugs there. And now what we can do is we can string that wire back through maybe 1 or 2 of those beads. And then once it's flush there, we can come in with our flush cutters and trim off that tail. And we want to get nice and close. All right, and then I'm going to slide everything down to one side here. Now here's another little trick I like to do as well. When I am doing a strung necklace, a bracelet, one mistake that I see people do is they'll separate the clasp and stretch it out, and then they'll go really, really taut this way. But the problem with that is, and let me see if I can show you with my bead stopper here, is so it's really, really taut. So when you do it, it looks a little crunched. You can see that it's not laying super duper flat. So one thing I like to do is leave the clasp clasped, because this is how you're going to wear it. And now we're going to slide on the other magical crimp, slide on our, and this is the problem with the magnetic clasp, slide on the other side here. Again, we want to make sure that those beads are all going to play nice there. And now, one thing I like to do as well is not only go back through that crimp, but go through those first 2 beads there, so that what we can do is we can pull from this end, and you can use your pliers too if you need to kind of get a little extra leverage. But now we can wiggle it around and kind of keep pulling and pulling and pulling. I'll try to get my hands out of the way so you can see what's happening. So I want to get that nice and tight, but you can see that there's a little extra space there, which I think is what we want, because the way you're going to wear it, you'll actually be happier that it won't be, like I said, all crunched up there. Okay, so now, again, coming in with our magical crimpers, we're just going to crimp, and I know it's a little harder to see on this side, just because my hands, and we're getting tight up in there now. And squeeze. And I'm going to kind of come to the side here. Give it a squeeze. And there's no set rule of how many times you kind of go around. You'll notice it start to, like I said, just form that little ball. And you want to make sure that you have a nice good crimping action there. All right, so now again, coming in with our flush cutters, and we want to make sure that we are only snipping off our tail here. So make sure everything is kind of out of the way. There we go. And you are all done. So there is our lovely little bracelet. Again, like I said, you can add more metal beads. You can also use any kind of different bead that you want for this basic technique. But I love that it has that lovely little magnetic clasp there and our double-sided charm on the end. So it's a really beautiful design using gemstones and lovely metal beads from TierraCast. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can see more tutorial videos and get all of these supplies by heading over to Beadaholique.com. And if you're new here to our YouTube channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button below to get all the latest from Beadaholique.